Well, Razorback fans, Arkansas down in Globe Life in Arlington went 2-1, but there was some reasons to be concerned, am I right? So let's talk about today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I am also the host of the John Nabors Show, which you can catch every weekday afternoon from 4 to 6 on the Natty State Sports and the Natty State Sports Network. I hope everybody's having a wonderful Tuesday, as today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Where new customers join today, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. What a weekend, and I know I've been late on the podcast, but we apparently have been changing networks, or at least changing the way that we're posting our audio for our podcast, so there had to be a little bit of a delay there, so I apologize about that, but either way, we should be back and better than ever when it comes to doing the podcast and whatnot. But for those of you who may not have known or didn't see, I was actually down in Arlington in Globe Life and being able to check out the Razorbacks and the baseball team down there in what was a very entertaining and very much fun setup. And for those of you who made the trip, I'm sure you'll agree, it's hard to beat. I mean, the weather was perfect. You had high-quality baseball. You were in a really nice ballpark. You had not a whole lot of people there. Razorback fans overwhelmingly took over Dallas, or at least the Arlington area, which was a little surprising that Oregon State had actually the second most fans there, even though Oklahoma State was closer. I don't know. I don't know why that makes sense, but that was just the way it was. But either way, Arkansas goes 2-1. And we'll talk about a performance like no other from Hagen Smith in the next segment, because that deserves its own segment. But Arkansas going 2-1 is about what you'd want, you'd expect, you'd hope for, especially given the circumstances of going up against the high-quality teams that they were going up against. You know, Oregon State's a top 10 team, arguably going to be a national seed when it's all said and done there in the postseason. Going to win more than likely the Pac-12. You have Oklahoma State, who's always a really good team, and they were the one team that beat Arkansas in the extra innings, which was extremely stressful but extremely frustrating if you're a Razorback fan. But you got them, and then Michigan I don't think is really that good, but still they're a team to be on the lookout for. But either way, Arkansas goes 2-1 in this. And the pitching was phenomenal across the board. I don't think you could have asked for anything more out of the pitching staff than what the Razorbacks were able to put forth, especially from the starters. I mean, Arkansas, if they can get that type of consistency out of Hagen Smith, Brady Tigert, and Mason Molina, that's going to be the greatest starting rotation Razorback baseball has ever seen, if that is any indication of what we saw this past weekend. Now, I know that's a huge statement. I know they got to be able to be a bit more consistent, but all things considered, when you have two guys that are perennial starters that you can count on and can be consistent, that's huge. But if you have three, that's what wins you championships. That's what gets you to the College World Series, and that's what helps you win. And Arkansas has that. They got bullpen. They got guys that can close. They got some, I'm not saying they're perfect, but they definitely have the depth, and the pitching staff is all of what it's cracked up to be. However, the offense is not there at all. And I want to make sure I'm clear that it's not a indictment where this is not going to get fixed, it can't get better, because you're talking about a team that's played 7 games with Arkansas. They're 5-2, and there's still a lot of time, a lot of development to get to being a better team. But the hitting has been pretty rough. Arkansas didn't even have a home run in this entire event, which I know is not the biggest indication of whether or not they actually ended up having success offensively, but kind of just shows you that even the things that they've been accused of as a hitting staff and as a roster of just being strikeouts and home runs, well, they had strikeouts, but they didn't get any home runs. So I'm looking down at the roster. I'm looking at the stats right now. And I guess Sprague Lott is the best hitter that Arkansas has, at least the consistent one. He's hitting .429 right now. He's at 21 at-bats, and he has 9 hits. 4 RBIs. 3 doubles. I mean, his slugging percentage is at .714. So right now, he's the best hitter you got. And he was a guy that wasn't even planning on being in the lineup. And I know that they're still kind of teetering with that a little bit. But you got him hitting at 429. You got Kendall Diggs at 370, really good. He's got 10 hits on 27 at-bats. And then you got Ben McLaughlin, who's just in at 333. He's got 9 hits on 27 at-bats. And then it really starts to drop off quick. You got Wilmsmeyer at 269. You got Peyton Holt at 250. Hudson White at 208. Without question, the most disappointing is seeing Eloy at 167. I know people have been attacking me and attacking others about, oh, you hyped up this kid. Guys, he's going to be all right. He's going to be fine. Always keep comparing it to Caleb Cali last year. Remember how that ended. And hopefully he does figure it out quicker. But he's going to be fine, but definitely been disappointing so far. He's had 30 at-bats. He's got 5 hits. That ain't it. Jason Jones at 133. Ryder Helfrich has been at 83, which, a lot of these guys haven't played in every game, so I want to make sure that that's clear, and they have a lot less at-bats. I'm just looking at the averages of where they've been at. It's bad. The hitting's bad. The offense is bad. You haven't been able to get any guys in score, or let me rephrase it. You've been able to get guys in scoring position. You just haven't been able to get them to score. And in fact, in that Oklahoma State game that went to 14 innings, I believe the final stat was that you were 1 for 14 with runners in scoring position. That's disgusting. That's terrible. You're not going to win games like that. So you got to find a way to get out of that funk. That can't happen. And Dave Van Horn knows it. I mean, every single game, folks, you won, or at least played this past weekend, was a one-run game. Think about that. It was a one-run game. You beat Oregon State 5-4. Oklahoma State beats you 2-1 in 14 innings. And then you have the win over Michigan that was 4-3. And even though you're up 4-0, you almost gave it up at the end. But every one of those games was a one-run game. Extremely close. Could have gone either way. So the disappointing thing is that with that elite pitching that you had, if you just had average hitting over the weekend, you would have blown the doors off of every team that you faced. Like, you would have destroyed them. And I get, like, for instance, Oregon State, when you're going up against them, you're going to be facing off against their ace. Like that's one thing. 5-4, that's one thing. But Oklahoma State, you're going up against them, and you're mowing them down, and you can only manage one run in 14 innings, one measly run. And then Michigan, who without question is the worst team of this entire event, you get to face off and tee off against them when they are running out of arms. And you got 4 runs. And there was a time where you had 3 runs with 1 hit. Michigan wasn't good. So it's just disappointing to not see any sort of offense get churned at all. Even last year when you played Oklahoma State in Game 3, you teed off on them and scored, I think it was like 13 runs. That's what I was expecting and really hoping for. Just didn't get it. So it is a little bit concerning, I'll admit. It's not something that anybody wants to see at all. But the good news is that it's a long season. A lot of ways to get it fixed, a lot of ways to get better, a lot of ways to develop. The weather will get warmer. People will settle in. You'll know what the lineup looks like a little bit more. But I was hoping and expecting a lot more than what we got. But it's a long season, right? Still a lot of fun. You went 2-1. It's just nice to be able to talk about a sport to where you're kind of upset and you went 2-1. Or you're kind of concerned and you went 2-1 against some really high-quality teams. I think that's a good thing to be having, without question. Folks, get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 winning bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to shoot your shot. FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I talked about the offense, and I talked about the lack thereof when it came to the event down there in Arlington. But one thing that you did not have to worry about whatsoever in this one was Hagen freaking Smith. Hagen Smith. You know, he had a tough outing in that first game of the season against James Madison. Really tough outing. Just went out there and, you know, walked a batter, hit a batter, gave up a 3-run bomb. Everyone's like, ooh, that's not good. In the first inning, threw 46 pitches. Just not good at all. Well, how about this from Hagen Smith on Friday? If you talk about getting back after it and setting the tone. Hagen Smith went 6 innings, giving up only 3 hits. And he struck out 17 batters. 17 batters. I have never seen anything like that before in my life. I'm not even a baseball guy. But I was sitting there in the suite there at Arlington, and I had people from Natty State Sports with me. Some of my coworkers there. We had friends of mine, some other acquaintances, but everybody was big baseball people, a lot bigger baseball people than me. And I knew what the answer was, but I jokingly, after every single strikeout, leaned over, was like, is that good? Seems like this is pretty good. Of the first 18 outs for Oregon State, 17 of them were strikeouts. And to see the pitch count at 78 that low, that type of success rate is stupid. It is stupid how good that was. And then to throw into the mix, and this is something that you really don't have it seen in the box score, but I know for those of you who watch the game or there, you'll understand when I say, not only were they strikeouts, but it wasn't strikeouts to where he was throwing some crazy, wild, insane pitches that just dropped and they kept looking at him as they went by because it was just tough to figure out what direction they were going. And it wasn't because of an umpire having an inconsistent strike zone and didn't know what was happening or what was going on. I don't have the number in front of me, but I feel like the vast majority of the strikeouts were on dudes that struck out swinging. Like they knew it was a good pitch. They knew it was coming right down the pipes, and Hagen burned them. And they had no answer. No answer. I don't know if we'll ever see that. Tied a school record. I would have really liked to have seen Hagen go back in there for one more batter. Just hoping that we could see him at least break the all-time school record. But to see that type of performance in person was incredible. You know, that's up there, folks. For those of you who may not be baseball fanatics or may not understand the rarity of a stat and of a number like that, that's up there with the type of performances of a Darren McFadden rushing for 321 yards against South Carolina. Like, it's up to that level. I don't think we'll ever see it again. That just doesn't happen, especially on that low of a pitch count. Now, I'm not expecting Hagen Smith to go out and to do this every single game. Would be nice. I wouldn't mind it. But boy, if anybody ever questioned a bounce back from this kid, and not to mention the fact that he was going up and doing it against Oregon State, who is a number 7 team in the country, who has like legitimate first-round picks in the lineup. And this dude was just throwing gas right behind him, and they had no answer. I think it was Travis Zana, I think it was his name. That guy's like a first-round pick. And he just got smoked. I mean, you just can't say enough about it. Cannot say enough about it. What an absolute stud performance by Hagen Smith. And the entire pitching staff in general. Again, Brady Tiger did awesome. Mason Molina did awesome. Gage Wood did great. Faraday fared well in the first game, but I know he kind of struggled there in the second. I think Will McIntyre bounced back well in the third game. But overall, the pitching was just phenomenal. Phenomenal. Could not ask for more. But Hagen Smith, kudos to you, dude. You can talk that talk when you're able to burn that many guys. 17 strikeouts. 17 out of 18 outs were strikeouts. That's just wild to me. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy your tickets for all sports, folks. Music, comedy, and theater events near you. It's a great deal, right? And we know that with the weather getting warmer, we're going to be out and about trying to go to these great events, right? And trying to enjoy ourselves for going to sporting events and shows and all of that. Well, you're going to have to buy tickets. And when you buy tickets, it can be a frustrating process, but not with Game Time, because it's last-minute tickets that you can get with flash deals, zone deals, easy to find and buy tickets of every kind of events, as well as views from the seat and the venue. So when you're buying the tickets, you actually get a full-fledged view of what it'll be looking like when you're watching said event, and you always get the lowest price guaranteed, event cancellation protection, as well as job loss protection, and it makes it extremely simple. And the greatest thing about it to me is that whenever you go and use Game Time, you don't have to worry about any of those hidden fees. The price is the price. As soon as you see it, that's what it is. It's not going to change on you, and they do it up front. So there's no sort of shadiness going on like you do with some of these apps. That's why Game Time's the best. So you got to check them out today. All you got to do is download the app. It's the Game Time app. And use promo code LOCKEDON. Use promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Again, promo code LOCKEDON when you download the Game Time app. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I know we've talked a lot about baseball, but basketball did have a game over the weekend, and they did win. They've won 2 in a row. Can you believe that? 2 in a row as they beat Missouri. Took care of business, and they swept Missouri. Missouri's trash. They're a terrible basketball team. Dennis Gates probably needs to be fired. Here's my deal. If you ever go 0 in conference play in any sport, I mean, football would be the only one I maybe could make an exception for. But even besides that, I still think you should be fired. But if you go 0 in basketball, you need to be fired quick, fast, and in a hurry. I don't even care what happens. There are 18 games. You should be able to win 1. But they're on the edge of it. But that's neither here nor there. Khalif Battle, though. Khalif Battle is a guy that in non-conference play, we saw some tremendous performances out of him. Tremendous performances. It seemed like 25 points in a game was just a common occurrence. But once SEC play started, the dude went MIA. I don't know what happened to him. There were games that he didn't even play in. There were games that when he did play in, he only played about 5 to 7 minutes. And then there were games where he played a lot of minutes but didn't have anything to show for it. Just no points, no stats, maybe a lot of shots with no makes, turnovers, whatever. He just went MIA. But something has sparked him to where now he's really settling in. And if you don't believe me, just ask the SEC offices. He was named SEC Player of the Week because he went for 42 points against Missouri. 42 points. He also had 15 points against Texas A&M. But 42 points were the most by an SEC player this season and the 7th most by a Razorback all time. He was just the 3rd Razorback to score at least 40 points in an SEC game. It really shows you a lot about it. But I was really happy for him. And he had some great quotes at the end of the game, too. Talking about it doesn't matter if the president's telling him not to shoot, he's going to shoot. Like, just really funny swagger comments, which is honestly what Arkansas's needed a lot more of, and I wish I could have seen a lot more of it this season. But he definitely does not lack confidence. But the greatest thing about that 42-point performance, it's not only just that he scored 42 points, but he went 11 of 15 from the field. Okay, 11 of 15. You know, usually when you see 40-point games from other individuals, I think Wade Taylor for A&M when he did it against Arkansas and Bud Walton, he shot the ball like 30-some-odd times. To get 42 points on 11 of 15 from the field is efficient as efficient gets. He went 6 of 10 from three-point land. That's 60%. It's not bad. And without question, a very important stat is going 14 for 14 from the free throw line. Perfect. Perfect from the free throw line. And one thing that I know Muss will really enjoy is that he also poured in 6 rebounds, did have an assist, did have a steal, and 0 turnovers. Did not turn the ball over once. I know that the season has not gone well. We all know that. And I know it's against Missouri, and they suck. We all know that. But I'd be hard-pressed to find a more impressive individual performance than what Khalif Battle did. Mason Jones, J.D. Note, great players. Had a lot of great games. But the efficiency is what impresses me about that. Dude just didn't miss, and he kept shooting, and they had no answer for him. And he was smart with the basketball. He didn't turn it over, and he still got rebounds. 6 rebounds. He was all over the place. So I was happy for him. I'm happy for Arkansas, and who knows? They got Vanderbilt tonight. Maybe they take care of business and beat the Commodores and make it 3 in a row. Maybe they can avoid Wednesday night sadness somehow. I'm putting the cart before the horse. But I'm just saying maybe. Maybe that happens. But we'll have to wait and see. Appreciate everybody listening in to Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Nabors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you then.